Dear students and friends, I welcome you to this lecture. Today we will discuss Guild Socialism, its meaning, origin and development. The main objective of this lecture is to define Guild Socialism, discuss the origin, evolution of Guild Socialism, explain the essence of Guild Socialist movement, and finally we will have a brief critical evaluation of the Guild Socialism as a concept. Guild socialism is another variety of socialism that may be taken as a curious mixture of French syndicalism and English Fabianism. However, it should not be seen as an alternative of socialism, neither some new doctrine springing up altogether afresh as a challenge to the socialist movement. Rather, it is an attempt to reinterpret the socialist idea and present it as a complete doctrine in such a manner that it helps democracy to become effective economically and as well as politically. The fundamental difference between the socialism and Guild socialism is that the main purpose of the former has been the emancipation of the new industrial working class that arose in Europe in the 19th century, which the British reformist socialists and pre-1914 continental Marxists have looked to achieve through the ownership and control of industry by community via the instrument of the state. While as Guild socialism sought direct control by the workers of the instrument of wealth production, including the arts, professions, and community organizations. The term Guild socialism is a combination of two different words. Guild, which means a self-governing association of mutually dependent people organized for the responsible discharge of a particular function of the society. While as socialism is described as both an economic and a political doctrine, and its core meaning is politico-economic system where the state controls and may legally own the basic means of production. Moreover, since its inception, the primary concern of socialism has been the interests of labor class in an industrial society. It seeks to abolish private ownership of the means of production on the ground that such ownership and management leads to social inequalities and incompetence within a society. The advocates of socialism regard the state as the instrument of achieving the greatest good of the largest community. The Guild socialists stood for state ownership of industry, combined with workers' control through the delegation of authority to national guilds organized internally on democratic lines. Moreover, it is seen as a doctrine of industrial self-government and accepts the normal socialist idea of communal ownership but rejects the state management, which to the Guild socialists is a system of bureaucratic tyranny. As already said, the main concern for Guild socialist movement is uplifting the working class through self-government in industries by the concerned working class. While drafting the scheme of things, the Guild socialists aimed at self-government of each branch of industry. They wanted, as the Webbs put it, the right of self-determination for each vocation. In the same way in which each municipality takes care of its local community affairs and the national government handles those affairs which concern the interests of the whole nation. The Guild alone should have jurisdiction over its internal affairs, and the government should restrict its interference to those things which the Guilds themselves cannot settle. Self-government, according to Guild socialists, essentially signifies sovereign position of workers so that they would be able to develop their personality. It is in this context Guild socialism is different from trade union, in which only workers and not officers are engaged at the helm of affairs. Also, trade unions simply fight for the protection and promotion of the interests of the workers, while as Guild socialism is concerned with entire management of the industry. The guilds would determine the amount of production and its sale at a particular price. Further, it would decide as to how much and in what manner the profit money is to be distributed among the workers of industry, not in the form of wage but as a share of each member in the industry. Thus, the essence of guild socialism is to deprive the owners of capital of both the powers to determine the conditions under which laborers work and their right to derive profits out of what labor produce. Unlike syndicalism, guild socialism endeavored to retain state even if it might be truncated and emasculated one. They recognized the state though with a limited role. They denounced the concept of state sovereignty and considered the state as one among many associations. Moreover, according to guild socialists, state would have certain functions to perform which are purely political in nature, for instance, national defense, etc. According to G.D.H. Cole, one of the strong exponents of the guild socialist movement, and I quote, "State should have an important place but not a solitary grandeur," unquote. In one of his books entitled Guild Socialism, Restated, G.D.H. Cole describes state, and I quote, "primarily as an instrument of coercion," unquote. Further, he said that in guild socialism there will be no sovereign power, though there will be a coordinating body to be called as the Commune. G.D.H. Cole then begins to enumerate the powers of the Commune. He gives a list of functions the Commune is supposed to perform. For instance, it settles price disputes, sometimes it fixes prices, allocates the surplus or distributes the loss. It allocates natural resources and controls the issue of credit. It ratifies budget of the guilds and civil services and levies taxes. All questions of income are within its jurisdiction. It also allocates income to the non-productive members of community. It's the final arbiter in all questions of policy and jurisdiction between the guilds. Commune is supposed to pass constitutional laws fixing the functions of functional bodies. It appoints the judges. It confers coercive powers upon the guilds. It controls armed forces and has authority to declare war and make peace. It is the supreme representative of the nation abroad. It settles boundary questions within the national state. It calls into existence new functional bodies or distributes new functions to old ones. It runs the police. It makes whatever laws are necessary to regulate personal conduct and personal property. Now let's have a discussion about the origin and development of guild socialist movement. Guild socialism has its origin in England. It's a political doctrine set forth by the English intellectuals like Orage-Penty, an architect by profession, A.R. Orage, a teacher and a journalist by profession, and S.G. Hobson, a journalist and a lecturer in early 20th century. The three intellectuals were members of the Fabian Society and the Independent Labour Party until they became dissatisfied with the persistence of these organizations in holding on to the ideas of centralized political socialism. It's in this context Orage-Penty's book Restoration of Guild System, published in 1906, holds an important position on the subject. In this particular book, Orage-Penty advocated a return to the medieval principle of self-government in industry, whereby a craftsman who was a member of an autonomous guild owned the instrument with which he worked and determined the nature and extent of his production. Later in the New Age, a weekly newspaper founded in 1907, S.G. Hobson and A.R. Orage published a series of papers. Both of them, through their regular columns, made vigorous attacks upon modern capitalism and collectivism of prevailing socialism and gradually reshaped the original Orage-Penty Proposals for restoration of medieval guilds into an elaborate scheme for national guilds properly adjusted to modern political economic conditions. In 1914, Hobson published National Guilds, an inquiry into the wage system and the way out. In this particular book, guilds were presented as an alternative to state control of industry or conventional trade union activity. Subsequently, it gained a wider acceptance when a group of younger men began to advocate it in a new publication entitled The Daily Herald. Soon, some new faces joined the movement. Prominent among them was a recent graduate from Oxford University, G.D.H. Cole. Cole, through his books and pamphlets, amplified the critical and constructive ideas of Guild socialism in a detailed manner. Because of his considerable contribution, Cole became quite influential and effective figure of the Guild socialist movement. Cole, the most ardent advocate of the Guild socialism, in his book Self-Government in Industry, enunciated the following 4 important points that marked the degraded status of labor. Number 1. The wage system abstracts labor from the laborer so that the one can be bought and sold without the other. Number 2. Wages are paid only when profitable to the employer. Number 3. In return for his wages, the worker surrenders all control over the organization of production. Number 4. The workers surrender all claims of product of this labor. Thus, in this context, the task of the national guilds was to assure the workers following 4 things. First, payment as a human being. Second, payment in employment and unemployment, in sickness and in ill health. Third, control of the organization of production by the workers. Fourth, a claim upon the product of his work. To achieve these objectives, Guild socialists advocate changes in the existing structure and functioning of trade union. They argued that there should be togetherness among the workers in the industries. The organizational base should be strengthened and aim at widest possible extension of membership. The Guild socialists were quite active in spreading their ideas among the trade unions. Their efforts ultimately led to the formation of National Guilds League in 1915. The league was established by W. Miller and M. B. Reckitt, besides several others. It became the main center of Guild socialist propaganda. Though the membership of the league was small, it had some influential and effective leadership. In addition to a monthly news magazine, the Guildsman, later changed to Guild Socialist, the league also published various books and pamphlets written by some of its members. It found a receptive audience in several sections of British labour movement, where similar trends of opinions had been developing independently. The league worked in close contact with several other trade unions. Guild socialism was much stimulated during the World War I by the rise of left-wing shop stewards movement, demanding workers' control in the war industries. The Great War led to the acute shortage in housing. As a result, the building workers, led by Hobson and Malcolm Sparks, founded several building guilds to carry out building schemes on a cooperative basis. All these leagues finally combined together to form a single league, which came to be known as National Building League. However, in early 1920s, with the general lowering of wage levels and an increase in unemployment, the workers' control over the labor supply had become less effective and the state withdrew its financial support to the building leagues. Consequently, all building guild leagues disappeared in a very short span of time. On the other hand, the Guild Socialist movement was on its decline and died out completely with the collapse of National Guilds League in 1925. Cole, one of the strong exponents of the movement, repudiated most of his Guild Socialism, and the others have turned their attention to the other matters. As a separate school of thought, Guild Socialism may be irrelevant and extraneous given the current political and economic conditions in the world. However, it had a very significant impact on the socialist ideas of England and in America, particularly with respect to the administration of nationalized industries and industries brought under strict national supervision. Now let's have a brief critical evaluation of the Guild Socialist movement. The Guild Socialist doctrine has been criticized on various grounds. For example, many political theorists said that despite being one of the forms of socialism, it negated the core elements of socialist thought, particularly over the existence and role of state. Furthermore, it borrowed concepts from Fabianism and syndicalism and added little of its own, as a result of which it was not able to produce a clear picture and attract many people except a small number from England. Also, the National Guilds League, the core organization of the movement, could not sustain for too long. Some of the main founders of the Guild Socialist movement, like G.D.H. Cole, got disillusioned from the movement and ultimately became Fabian. The Guild Socialist movement has also been accused of being reactionary school thinkers. Their main inspiration comes from medieval system that had its own problems and issues. Thus, on these grounds, Guild Socialism became target of many political thinkers for a very long period of time. To conclude, Guild Socialism emerged as a trend in the British labour movement which enjoyed great ideological success from 1915 to 1926. It's considered one of the forms of socialism. Guild Socialists were opposed to private ownership of industry and strongly supported the idea of public ownership. Like Karl Marx, they considered capitalism as a system of wage slavery which turns individuals into commodities who are purchased and owned through market exchange. Therefore, Guild Socialism aims to address both the material inequality inherent in capitalism and the effect of alienation caused through the wage slavery relationship. Over the existence of the state, they differed among themselves, some believing it would remain more or less in its existing form, while as others were of the opinion that it would be transformed into a federal body, representing the workers' guilds, consumers' organizations, local government bodies and other social structures. They hold the opinion that parliament action is inefficient to bring any positive change for the working class. In early 1920s, there was a decline in the movement. It was in 1925 that with the collapse of the National Guilds League, that Guild Socialism disappeared from international scene. After the World War II, the movement completely lost its supports across the globe. So friends, this was all about Guild Socialism. Hope you have understood the topic. Thank you for watching. See you soon with a new topic for discussion. Till then, goodbye.